Welcome to Slash Forward. In this episode, we're going to examine what is, so far, the most realistic depiction of human-monkey telepathy ever captured on film, with the 1988 thriller Monkey Shines. If you've ever been disappointed when your helper Capuchin refused to slaughter your enemies for you, subscribe to the channel for additional tips. Let's get to it. We open on a fine-looking working-class neighborhood. Alan wakes up and forgoes the pleasures of Linda's flesh in favor of hitting an early morning run. This, for him, involves loading up a knapsack with bricks, before trotting off like an absolute mad lad. He proves to be both too fast and too focused, however, as he darts away from a dog, and he and his collection of bricks are sent flying through the air. We then see him on the operating table.
Oh my God, Martha, his ass is even hairier than yours.
Where this cocky doucher proves to be incapable of properly repairing his damaged cord. So when we find him awake again, it's evident he's been lying to rot for some time. Despite this poor situation, we learn that Dr. John is held in high honor at the homecoming, for at least saving Alan's life. After the introductory accolades, he doesn't hesitate to check in on how Linda's doing, like a true friend and ally. Then it's time for Alan's big arrival where everyone cheers for him, and then he gets to observe as they stare, slack-jawed, at his once capable body now confined forever to the chair. Hey, you throw a great party, guys. We learn that Linda's having a hard time with this as she apologizes for not visiting more often, and she proves to be entirely incapable of preparing a drink for him. So instead, she calls his lab bro, Jeffrey, to see when he plans on arriving. Turns out, he's busy with his experiments. He injects himself for fun and then gets to scraping some brain material into his boiler, the results of which are then injected into one of his Capuchin test subjects. He then tests her smartness by having her check the machine for messages, which prompts him to remember that he's late for the homecoming. He rolls up after all the guests have left, allowing for some one-on-one time between the two scholars. They bust each other's chops and catch up as Alan confides that he feels Linda's drifting from him due to the new difficulties of his daily life. Mother then comes by to cheer up her boy, regaling him with nostalgic stories from his childhood. You know, back when he could move his body. With her seemingly incapable of recognizing his needs, he goes ahead and mouths his way out of there. We then see Jeffrey in a late-night meeting with the head of his department, Burbage, who finds his research laughable but with high reward potential if he pulls off his ideas. But still, there is a need to show results in order to justify their continued activities. With his ass on the line, Jeff ups the dosage and pushes his subjects to get wise quickly. Back at home, Alan attempts to acclimate himself to the new amenities of his smart home, but finds even the simplest activities to be significantly aggravating. When Jeffrey arrives for a quick visit, we all discover that the frustrations run a bit deeper than expected. At the hospital, the doctor points out to Mother that her presence is likely exacerbating things, and also that her being there didn't prevent the attempt on his life, so everyone would likely be better off as she headed back home. Some difficult but necessary truth bombs. Then Linda shows up and Jeff is surprised to discover that she had no idea about Alan's troubles. She's here to enjoy Dr. John's company and for the promise of sushi, you see, and Jeff makes a diagnosis of his own.
You clinical cunt.
That hits pretty hard. Later, we see Jeff vetting a helper monkey program and jumps the line by offering tradesies. He'll supply a fresh, smart Capuchin, and all Melanie has to do is spend all of her time training it up in the ways of monkey butlery. And soon, they both arrive with one of his curious young prior test subjects. After a brief introduction, they demonstrate how Ella has been trained to complete a variety of caretaking tasks in exchange for treats, an arrangement that sours Marianne. But they still form an instant bond that brightens the general mood of the house. After a bit of fine-tuning on the training, Ella is hopping around the house and completing tasks based on a simple laser voice command system, thus rendering Marianne nearly obsolete, other than the need to occasionally provide a refill on Ella's treat container, a job she finds humiliating, which is exacerbated when Ella outsmarts her at every turn. Later, Ella puts on some tunes and the two new best friends share some face hugs, and Alan is so encouraged by this new turn of events we discover that he decides to return to school, and with every passing moment he becomes more smitten with Ella's loyalty and willingness to complete tasks for him, which is apparently his primary love language. Similarly, Melanie finds herself succumbing to one of the primary pitfalls of her chosen profession, falling in love with your service monkey customers. Later on, when Alan goes to show off some of their progress, they inadvertently discover a breakthrough. He asks Ella to phone Jeffrey for him, but she becomes confused because Jeffrey is right there. This demonstrates an above-average capacity for problem solving. Hungry for more data and progress, Jeff takes Ella to grab a beer and uses the alone time to jab her in the butt with some more of his brain serum. him. She's not happy about the intrusion, but it's for her own good, and she'll get that someday. Back at the lab, we get some more setup of the tension between Jeff and Burbage. Busy with his barbaric studies, we learn he has a hate boner for Jeff, who reported Ella dead in order to smuggle her out. Thinking there was actually a dead monkey lying around, Burbage sure would have liked to have gotten a chance to autopsy the corpse. In response, Jeff declares his intent to change the locks on his lab so he can continue his work in peace. Back at the house, tensions boil over as Alan gets pissed about Marianne failing to serve them properly. And by they, he means himself and Ella, a relationship that Marianne finds creepy. Finally hitting her breaking point, she unleashes her emotions and storms off. Then her petulant bird arrives, throwing Alan into a panic and nearly causing him to topple off the bed. We see his panic internalized by Ella, and then he insists that she get rid of the bird or so help him.
You what?
Yeah, fair enough. But that night, Ella takes her problem solving to yet another level, freeing herself from her cage and taking it upon herself to open another cage to eliminate the nuisance. We then get a monkey's eye view of playtime in the woods, which appears to exist inside of Alan's sleeping mind. The dream is then interrupted by a real-life nightmare when Mother arrives back at the house. It's actually personal nightmares all around as Marianne then wakes up to find Mr. Peeps inside her slipper. At the table, there's a dispute about the level of Alan's involvement in the defiling of her precious bird. And really, it seems like it may be a good time to consider moving on to a new job.
You fucking deserve to die.
Yeah, probably. We then learn at bath time that Mom is actually here because Marianne alerted her last week to her intent to quit. But it's all good because she's selling her business and all her belongings to move in and care for Alan full time. Merry Christmas! Then Alan seems to move his hand, but he was the only one who saw it, tempering his excitement. And later that night, he continues to dream the dreams of monkeys. In the morning, he attempts to confront Ella about her evening sojourns outside the house. Jeffrey finds some clear evidence of her leavings in the attic, but claims everything to be shipshape, wanting to see how this scenario plays out for his research. Alan's sure that their minds are melded in some way and that he's seeing through her eyes, but Jeff is incredulous. Later on, Alan goes in for a second opinion about his quadriplegia, and the new doctor suggests that his paralysis may be congenital and just happened to have been initiated by the truck accident. This means that they repaired the impact damage, but there's another correction to make that could result in him regaining the ability to move his body. However, the doc would want to do some additional testing first and see signs of an intentional movement by Alan. Alan and Ella are livid about this, and as Melanie tries to help him work through his anger, we see that the mindfulness may be a two-way street, as Alan is now wallowing in his primal primate instincts. Desiring to confront Dr. John about his incompetence, he's given a forwarding number by the office that he recognizes to be Linda's number. He calls to confirm and now draws the conclusion that John may have been somewhat distracted from his treatment by his own base desires. But really, they're just moisturizing. Alan's rage spurts out of his lip, and Ella drinks of the master. Then, via monkey dreams, it's insinuated that she goes to the cabin and sets the bed on fire, significantly enhancing the levels of their coital showmanship. But it was a bit too much, and Alan awakes the next morning to news of their death, information that he seemed to already be privy to. Alan now fully recognizes the impact Ella's presence is having on him, and he wants her taken away. But Jeff still needs data, so he insists it couldn't have been her, and Melanie unwittingly helps him with this by demonstrating the natural animal instinct to abhor the naked flame, which coincidentally was my nickname in high school. Jeff does eventually relent to at least take her in for some testing, and he discovers that Ella is smart enough now to know why she needs the serum and actively requests injections. Melanie convinces Alan to stay in her barn for a couple of days to clear his head, and he almost immediately feels his animalistic rage subsiding. But these sudden emotional shifts are confusing to him, and he ends up getting fresh with her. In response, she maybe reluctantly begins to undress, but slowly and behind him, which leaves him to sit there feeling ashamed of what he did. But all is forgiven, and soon enough she's learning the pleasures of the lips, and the monkeys cannot believe it. Later at the lab, Jeff returns to find signs of espionage and discovers that almost all of his serum is now gone. So he's got some big plans for that last dose.
This shit can plug you into Alan's head. Maybe it can plug me into yours.
I mean, why the hell not? I guess probably because of this, but we come to learn these are actually signs of the serum working, as Jeff kicks back and takes in the monkey show. Ella returns to Alan, resulting in an immediate mood change. Recognizing this, he warns Mother that Ella's here to be careful, but she thinks he's full of crap and trying to drive her off. So she emotes all over him, and he finds himself unable to contain his rage, effusing all over her in return and putting her in a dangerous spot. Jeff comes to with the monkeys now running the show and realizes the danger. So he grabs a couple doses of poison and runs off to try to end it. Back at the house, despite Alan's warnings, Mother decides to relax in a warm bath and pretend like she never had a son. And she actually gets the equivalent of this reality when Ella tosses in a hairdryer. Jeff arrives shortly after and tries flipping the breaker, giving Mommy another quick zap. He closes Alan in to go check on her and he finds the short. This allows him to get the lights back on. At this point, he goes ahead and comes clean with Alan, admitting that he gifted him a drugged-up experimental monkey. This causes him to become the subject of Alan's focused rage, bringing upon him one of man's greatest horrors, a monkey with a straight razor. After the scuffle, she menaces Alan and then runs off. Jeff wraps his wound and goes off in search of her. As soon as Jeff gets upstairs, she hops out on the main level and begins cutting the phone lines to try to prevent outside communication. However, Alan is able to get the receiver off the hook and notify Melanie of the trouble at home. As the scuffle continues, Alan discovers that he doesn't have enough torque to escape the phone cord, and while he's stuck, Jeff lurks around upstairs, at which point Ella hops out with one of the doses of poison he dropped and she sticks him in the back. Jeff admits defeat to Alan, and we discover that he's too loopy from the poison to make any good decisions, and he ends up passing out on the floor. Then Ella works to cut off all means of escape in order to ensure that he's reliant on her now. She even rejects his offer of a prize, and shows him who's boss by cramming treatsies in his face. Alan is determined to figure out how to come out on top here, distracting Ella with care requests as he tries to intentionally dive into the mind meld. But he's distracted from this when Melanie arrives and crashes through the window. He tries to warn her away, but she opts to monkey brawl instead, and despite her size advantage, she does take a wicked head injury that puts her out. Luckily, she's wet enough that she can't be set aflame despite Ella's best efforts. Then, just in case there was any question at all about what's what, Ella pees on Alan's lap to demonstrate herself the superior creature. After that, she attempts to figure out how to get the syringe into Melanie's face, and just before she discovers the softness of the eyeball, Alan wills his hand to move and hits the music, coaxing Ella in via gentle seduction. Once there, he goes beast mode on her, ravaging her something fierce and ensuring she never invades his brain again. And then, after a brief nightmare-inducing spinal surgery, Alan's all good. We find him leaving the hospital on his feet with Melanie, now comforted in the possibility of demonstrating to her the pleasure of the hips. I have a website set up where you can support the channel through donations or merch. I'd like to take a moment to give a huge thanks to my donors memorialized in the Hall of Headshots. Monkey Shines is a classic and monkey-themed horror, although I don't think the film itself fully lives up to the iconic poster. The plot is a bit bloated, and the film could have benefited from being pared down to provide more of a showpiece for the climax of monkey-on-human violence. If you enjoyed the video, I'd love for you to become a part of the channel by subscribing. Thanks for watching.